Hi, everyone, and welcome to Discover Spiritism Network. My name is Steve. I'm here with my friends.
Luide, Rocha.
Yonara.
Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
And we're here today at Broward Spiritist Society, and we're doing a special podcast. What do you call this? Interview about magnetism.
Yes.
And I'm familiar with magnetism from coming to the center. Before I came to the center, I hadn't ever heard of it. As far as I've heard of things like Reiki and Qigong, things like that from my own life and experience. But hearing about human animal magnetism was new for me. So maybe we could kind of start from the beginning for people. Maybe there's people out there that haven't heard of it, like I hadn't heard of it. So
Yes. Good. Most people never heard of it. But the whole thing it started with Mesmer, and that's going to be around the 1700. Mesmer was a a physician, and at the beginning he was studying the effect of the planets and actually the astros in our body. So he realized at first that his first question was related to how come the moon influenced the ocean so bad. And then when there's a full moon,
it brings the tides.
Bring the tides, and when it doesn't have the full moon, the tides are completely different. And as a scientist, most people don't care about that. It's kind of like the Newton story, and the apple fell down the tree. And some people don't ask these questions, and but he did, and he came up with a solution, and he studied and realized that they have what they call the magnetic field. So the planet Earth had a magnetic field, the moon had a magnetic field, and when the moon approached the Earth, and on a full moon, it will affect the magnetism of the planet Earth, and that will create the tides. And that when the whole thing begins. And then Mesmer was like, okay, so he started to do a research on his time how the moon and the sun will also influence our body. Like certain amount of disease, according to Mesmer back then, it were more alive, or it were more noticeable torment during the full moon. And then also the reason why at night most of the people get, if you're sick for some reason at night, you get even more sick. This still happens today. And he was concerned about the influence of the sun and our health, and how important it is for you to go outside in the sun, and the difference that the effect that the sun and the moon had in our body.
I mean, this is unrelated, but they actually say, like, police will actually say that there's more crime when there's a full moon out. I saw it on Cops once.
Yes, there is.
And they're like, I don't know what it is, but for some reason, there's a full moon every time. And they're kind of like saying it's a coincidence or something, but to actually think
what about the maternity? There was always more babies that are born during the full moon. And we also, I used to work in this retail place, and when the customers start to acting up and complain about someone who was, oh, it must be a full moon, and then when you look in the calendar, it is a full moon. So actually affect also the emotions of the people. And people from the past, they were a lot more interested in learn this phenomenon that we are today. Today we don't pay as much attention as we should. We know that most babies born in a full moon. Why? Is no one researching this? Is no one? And we know that affects the person emotions, but nobody it's really studying that. But Mesmer did, and then he realized that okay, if I am a magnetic field and the other person it also has their own magnetic field, can I affect that person with my magnetic field in the same way that the sun and the moon affect us? And that's how he started his whole idea. And he realized the difference when a magnetic field. He realized that the hands are the biggest conductive of that magnetic field, that what he called. And the difference, it's according to him, there is a difference when you approach your hands very close to that person, has one effect, and very and far had a completely different effect. So with that, he realized, okay, we are a magnetic field. The other person is also a magnetic field, and we can actually interfere on each other's magnetic field. One can be receiving, and the other one can be donated, but it's definitely an effect. And that's how he started. The whole thing started right there.
And magnetism, he called animal magnetism because it's,
Animalized
Animalized,
magnetism.
animalized
Yeah,
human.
people get the wrong idea
They
when they
get-
say animal magnetism. It sounds kind of like some kind of like cologne or something like that.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly. It's because it's life. It has the life on it.
Animated.
It's different than
It's what gives us life.
Life.
That's what he means.
of
by
course,
that.
it's just a beginning on this podcast for people to understand magnetism, but it is a science as large as is Spiritism himself.
Mhm.
So even Kardec was a magnetizer for 30 something years before, codificating, decodifying Spiritism, and he was well known in magnetism, and that's the reason why he didn't talk about a lot on their books and his books.
Talk about it. He just didn't explain what it is.
It was and how
the
it
word
works.
magnetism
It's pervasive
mentioned.
throughout all the literature in
Yes,
Kardec.
yeah.
But that's the thing is like I started reading the Spirits book and he talks about magnetism and the way he talks about it as if you already know what it is.
Everybody,
Exactly.
because
And
in France that time everybody knew
Yeah,
magnetism.
it was so popular.
It was so popular, and they didn't realize that the problem that we're having right now, it's like no one knows about magnetism anymore. And then when you read that in Kardec's book, you were like, what is this? And people don't really get it, what this is all about. And that's the biggest problem that we have today in Spiritism, is the fact that we left animal magnetism behind, and Allan Kardec treated as sister science.
He always said sister sciences.
Yeah.
And then when Spiritism moved to Brazil on a spiritual way, the Brazilians didn't know about Spiritism or about magnetism, and they transformed magnetism into passe and lost all the science.
Yeah, to be honest with you, they had a clue about it, because okay, let's finish this podcast with this thought. Where is the word passe originated from? Where does it come from? We use it in a center, in the center, but we have no idea where it comes from.
But it's not in Kardec's books.
No, it's not in a Kardec's book, but it's in magnetism.
But it is in magnetism.
It is in magnetism.
All the magnetism books.
Passes is a word that was created by Mesmer to actually tell you about this exchange of fluid, of magnetic field from one field to another. So he named that as passes. The funny thing is, is the same, and it's the same word in French and English and Spanish and Portuguese. It's passes. So it's passes. And people today, they give the passes on in every center, but they have no idea what they come from. What are they using? Why are we using the word passes? And that's why I think in Brazil they had an idea, because they brought and created the word passes and brought into the center. Right. But people don't know what passe is, what the word come from and all this. So they think passes is something that has nothing to do with magnetism. But it doesn't matter if you're doing a spiritual passe or whatever passes it is, the word passe itself, it's from asthma. It's from animal magnetism.
And if you don't study animal magnetism, you're not going to understand passes.
Yeah, and how the concept of masma and what is all about. So the main thing is we are using something at the center, at the spirit center. We're using a tool, but we need to find out about the history of that tool. Same way that we need to study the history of Spiritism to get to know Spiritism, or any kind of science that you actually want to learn about it. The first practice, the first step is always to go through the history. And that's what we're going to do a little bit on this podcast, is to go through the history of animal magnetism and bring them together, bring the two science as the sister science, like Kardec actually asked us to do it.
So we're going to do a follow-up on this podcast as a kind of a series, so that we're going to call Magnetism, and so we can put it out there. We've been working with magnetism for more than 15, 20 years. And we have a lot of the information from the old magnetizers, from asthma, and from experience.
And maybe let me just ask you, for somebody who's new to this, if they're like watching for the first time or they stumbled in here on YouTube, like, tell me about the magnetic pass. Like, what type of results do you get, or what do you use it for?
We actually, you can use it for a lot of things, but it's most used for health purpose. Like if you have any type of
physical
condition, anything. And if you are depressed, for example, there was a great technique that it's already created to deal with depression. And if you're going through a hard time, I mean, you can get it for different reasons, but the main reasons will go through health.
And it's like, when you talk about depression, like a lot of times people that deal with depression, they go to a doctor and the doctor's like, take this pill, you know, and the pill has side effects, and the side effects, it's like more depression. It's like other reasons to be depressed. Like sometimes the pill is like makes you feel better, but then the side effect is like suicide or something. You see that sometimes
Suicide
written on the labels. So I mean, that's what the idea, that if you can go try it, have a magnetic pass, you know, that you might actually, like, what are there any side effects from the magnetism?
No, there's the good news. There's no side effects from it.
There's good effects.
Yeah.
Does it cause drowsiness?
No. And it's a natural healing, you know. It's a natural way of healing the body.
To rebalance, to reorganize your magnetic field, your magnetic fluid.
If you do believe in energy, which most people do,
yes.
Imagine how your energy looks like when you're very depressed, you know, and having someone else with a different kind of energy influence on your energy and make it all better. That's basically it.
You know, and a lot of people talk about magnetism like in a just as in a way of saying, like they'll say like that sometimes when somebody enters a room and they have that magnetic personality, and you just feel better being around them, you know. And so it's not really so crazy to think that this is actually something that you could cultivate, that you could actually work on and make it, you know.
Yes, you can change it.
And the fact that you do have a magnetic field, you know, and you can sense that all the time, you know, like going to someone's next to someone that you feel really good, or the opposite that you actually don't feel good at all. And those are the things that are, I don't think anybody has a doubt, you know, because everybody actually experienced that in one way or another. And okay, so that's the whole idea of mesmer. How can my magnetic field influence your magnetic field? And how can I make you feel better? And how can we exchange that? And that's, we do it naturally anyway, without any consciousness about it. With animal magnetism, you'll be doing the same thing, but you'll be conscious about it. And
with some techniques.
And learn how to do that. And I guess it's very interesting and awesome, I guess.
Well, I just want to say the magnetic field in me honors the magnetic field in you.
Awesome.
So, well, our time is up for today, but well, I really appreciate you coming. I mean, it's kind of like I already know a little bit about this, so I'm trying to just ask questions as if I don't know, for somebody that might be
don't
new.
know. Yeah, no, that's good.
Because we need
That's good.
It's hard to sometimes like to start from the beginning when you have so much you want to say. If so much you want to say about it, it's like where do we really
If
start?
somebody has any questions, just give us the email and everything so they can contact us.
Yeah, you can leave comments on the YouTube video, and we'll get them, and they will influence what kind of content we bring forward. So
Of course.
So yeah, you know, we definitely love hearing from people in the community. And well, thank you so much, Luigi.
No problem.
Thank you, Yonara.
Thank you.
And once again, my name is Steve, and we're here on Discover Spiritism Network. We'll see you next time.